Welcome to another episode of No Shelf Control, which is Portal's podcast where we explore the fast-shifting world of retail media, performance marketing, and digital commerce. Today's guests are from one of the most inventive and exciting agencies in the game, and that is Billion Dollar Boy. I'm joined by Simon Harwood, Global Effectiveness Director, and Olivia Cripps, Paid Media Director. And together, they're not just pushing pixels, they are redefining how creative campaigns drive real commercial impact. And we're bringing together influencer media, retailer journeys, and Portal session level analytics and behavioral data is helping measure and improve performance in an entirely new way. So, Simon and Olivia, before we go full media geek on this, let's give the listeners a bit of a background as to who you are, what you've done in your career, and what's led you to this point. So, Liv, why don't we start with you?
For sure. Started my working life in football journalism, actually, before falling into social media. I worked on client-side social media, mainly in the food industry, but also in travel as well. And then worked on paid media activation campaigns through that, and then started at Billion Dollar Boy in 2019. Really small team, just two of us kind of activating small campaign-based activations for kind of smaller clients. And fast forward 6 years to now, I'm leading the team globally, and we handle global clients like Disney Plus, Stitch Fix, Amazon. So my focus has now really shifted into growth and strategy and how we can really stay on top of our game and make sure that we are performing with new strategies, tools, and tech.
Amazing. So you've seen it grow from just a few people to the behemoth it is today.
Yes,
That's,
exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool for sure.
What a journey. And Simon, what about yourself?
So my background is media agency side. So I started at PhD a long time ago, 12 years at PhD, and mostly focused on media strategy, although I had lots of weird and wonderful job titles when I was there. Head of innovation and creativity at one point, head of futures, which was took some explaining to clients. And then after that, I went to lead strategy for 7 Stars in the UK. I was there for 5 years, and I really wanted to, having spent a lot of time in innovation kind of roles and strategy roles, I found myself writing a lot about the creator economy and, which was obviously blowing up at that point, probably at the same time as Liv was starting. And I wanted to get a bit more closer to, because I'm a great believer in not just kind of writing about kind of what's happening, but actually practicing it as well. So as luck should have it, Billion Dollar Boy, we had a conversation with them about 2 years ago, and they were very much wanting to kind of lean into some of the disciplines around kind of media strategy. Media as a kind of more sort of grown-up industry has been through a lot of the challenges that influencer faces, especially around things like measurement and kind of proving the work works. So so I joined as their first global effectiveness director, another made-up job title, and my job is essentially to help the strategy and analytics and insights team both two things: demonstrate that the work does indeed work, improve the effectiveness of it, but also make sure that we are doing the best work possible and improving the work and making it as effective as possible for clients. So when I think about strategy, for example, I always think a key part of strategy is actually making sure that the work is as effective as possible. So that's my job.
No, absolutely. Thank you for that. So we've got strategists on both sides, a bit of scientists thrown in there with Simon's job, and me pretending to know what I'm doing with a microphone. So let's get into it. I'm going to start with a bit of a light-hearted question, which is, if you had to describe the current state of influencer media using a metaphor, what would it be and why? And Liv, I'm going to start with you on that.
Okay, I've gone a bit rogue, but bear with me.
Okay.
We're going with, it's like running a busy restaurant that serves fusion foods. Okay. I haven't decided which cuisine, so please don't ask me that as a follow-up question. But we're starting influence marketing. It's an industry similar to a fusion restaurant where when we started, it was viewed as an option. It wasn't necessarily a must-have. It wasn't necessarily relevant to every single client. So influencer and influence marketing had to prove itself. It had to prove that it offered something new, that it was engaging, that it was long-lasting, that it was impactful.
And tasty.
And tasty, exactly. I know we're going to switch the metaphor out. So we had to do that on a smaller scale with a more forward-thinking audience. Influencers definitely, you know, had their place initially with people who decided to take that leap. But then similar restaurants, similar people started popping up and doing kind of similar work and moving into the influencer space. And so you really have to now, in influencer marketing, separate yourself. You have to keep having new dishes, new recipes, hot new chefs, new concepts, you know, Heston Blumenthal kind of style stuff, to really stand out from the crowd. And trends change in influencer marketing, in food, you know, truffle oil, bubble tea, all of these trends that we're dealing with. So it's just really about standing out from the crowd and making sure that you stay focused on your kind of core offering and your core recipes, I suppose, that keep your customers keeping coming back.
I really like that. I enjoy that reference a lot.
Thank you.
Simon, do you want to add
Well, that's
to
a
that
tough
mix?
act to follow. Yeah. It's not quite as well thought out as that. It's a bit more flippant. I would say, I think at its current state in 2025, the metaphor I'll go with is the gold rush.
Okay, I like that.
There's a lot of people charging forward into influence marketing. Some of them maybe don't know what they're doing as much as others. Leave that there. And the people making the serious money are the people selling the pickaxes and the shovels. Because I think at the minute, it's what's really interesting is the infrastructure around influence marketing. That's what's rapidly kind of growing up as it matures. And so it's actually, you know, whether it's, you know, kind of measurement or you know, campaign management, tracking what the hell's kind of going on with each influencer as it kind of scales up. It goes through these kind of growing pains. It's the people really kind of taking infrastructure seriously.
Yeah.
That are the equivalent of the guy selling the shovels. Interestingly, this morning I heard that the Trump family made their money from not selling shovels, although they might have done, providing the hotels for the prospectors in the initial gold rush. So there you go.
Fascinating. I like both of those perspectives, and I appreciate
very random
the depth we've gone into there. So fantastic, and I did not know that about the Trump family. So appreciate the facts. So I want to zoom out a little bit now and talk a little bit around industry challenges. So from your perspective, what are the biggest challenges digital and e-commerce teams face when it comes to influencer and paid media today? Simon, should we start with you for that one?
Yeah, I think the challenge today is pretty much the same as it was when I started in Influencer 2 years ago. It is measurement. Walk actually did some research that said among top marketers, C-suite, that I think 75% of them cited measurement as the biggest challenge. That was 2 years ago. I think if you were to rerun the survey today, it would still be pretty much the same. We actually did our own research recently, talking to marketers about you know, how they kind of go about measuring influencer. What was quite interesting is there was a bit of a disconnect between the types of objectives that they're tasking influencer marketing with achieving, which were very much based on actually upper funnel kind of brand metrics, shifting the dial on things like consideration, and then how they were measuring influencer marketing, which is still very much kind of stuck quite often in the old kind of vanity metrics, whether it's engagement rates, you know, even kind of using impressions as a kind of proxy for awareness. So there's a bit of a kind of job to do on that front. And I think that secondly, a lot of the clients really are very interested in measuring return on investment as well, which is definitely part of the picture. But again, if you're looking at return on investment and you're looking at it from a brand point of view, what window are you looking at? Are you looking at the immediate term, which is what often the default is, or should you be looking at a bit of a longer term picture? So I think that is another example of kind of growing pains that you often see. You know, people can, you know, marketers are clearly excited about it, seeing that it's working. We now need to put in place the kind of the infrastructure to make it more accountable.
Absolutely, and there's a big learning curve to go on when it comes to measurement. There's not one size fits all. It's a toolbox, in my opinion.
Absolutely, we don't believe in
tools that play into that same conversation to help you measure whether you are a D2C brand or a CPG brand driving traffic to places you don't own the analytics for. So, I think it's a learning curve that even some of the most advanced companies are still learning every single day, and new tech challenges get thrown at us by the manufacturers or even the browser developers. So,
Yeah, because I think even from a paid point of view, we've always been able to track those results. We've always been able to look at lower funnel metrics. We've always been able to have that visibility and prove the impact that we're making, especially, really important when it comes to our influencer activity. But we only are able to do that if we get the correct access, if we have things like pixel access, the consistent UTM tracking, insight into tools like Google Analytics or third-party retailers. So for us, that's really where, if we don't have that information or we don't have those tools available, then we're not able to prove the impact of our activity as successfully, which is, of course, a big stumbling block.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I would agree. So building on something that you just mentioned, Simon, around the change in narrative from awareness metrics and awareness data that you get your hands of, and live to that example you just gave for CPGs, there's always been this creative tug of war between building the brand and performance. How do you balance that tension when you're sat there in front of your clients discussing your creator marketing plans?
I think we see ourselves as a facilitator of both. I think typically brand building exercises and also influencer marketing has this reputation for being quite, having quite heavy narratives, emotional hooks, and then the conversion activity is seen as more, conversion CTA and that more kind of direct to action. I think we're now seeing them merge more, and I think people want to first and foremost talk about what your goal is and then adapt the content accordingly to that goal. So it's about us using our expertise to guide clients on what creators, what formats, what creatives work best, because some are going to work better for one than the other, and actually there is room for both to work alongside each other with influencer involved in both. It just depends. I think you just have to be really clear about ultimately what your goal for each of those paths is.
Yeah, absolutely agree. That definition part of, what is it? This activity? What is its purpose? What is its goal? And let's measure it as such. And
sure.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Simon, did you want to add to sort of the creative tug of war?
Yeah, I think the smartest thing that Direct Marketing ever did was rebrand itself as Performance, because it really does talk the language of the kind of boardroom. But I think brand kind of probably needs to go for a similar reinvention, because a brand, we've seen it before with activity that has been designed for top of mind awareness can still deliver kind of sales. So this idea that brand somehow gets off the hook from sales is load nonsense, really. I think, because the difference is, as Liv was talking about, it's like, what are you designing for primarily? What's your kind of overall focus? So of course, if you want to design something with immediate sales impact, that's great. But you can also design something to be memorable for someone who's maybe not ready to take a sale just yet, but may do at some point in the future. So I think what we tend to talk to brands about is, kind of going back to that idea of the sales window, the brand activity is not off the hook for sales. The difference is that can drive lasting sales. So it can drive sales today and sales tomorrow, whereas the expectation for performance is that it's going to drive something in the immediate term, or not at all. I think it's just a question of, the slightly confusing thing when it comes to creator marketing, of course, is that it's so good at actually delivering, taking someone from not being aware of a product or a brand at all to giving it a go. Which is why social commerce is so successful. You can kind of close that kind of loop pretty quickly. So some of the kind of terms are not helpful when we are trying to demonstrate that we can use creator marketing to build brands, to build kind of memorability for the future as well as today. As Liv was saying, it's really a case of kind of like making sure that we're really clear right at the beginning what we're trying to do. So we still get a lot of briefs that say we want sales and awareness.
With a small
more
budget.
than you would think. And so strategy is all about prioritization, right? So you need to we would always say absolutely measure both, but what are you designing it for? Is it immediate sales? If so, then perhaps you can't have the awareness goal, or if it's vice versa,
Yeah.
you design it for kind of long-lasting awareness, and you might monitor sales, but it doesn't mean that you're optimizing to sales.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. I think it's just about making sure that we're being careful with our language, and that we're designing kind of each part of the activity, each kind of different assets against different objectives. Now, if they deliver against both of them, sales and awareness, obviously that's great, but that's not we try to manage expectations. That what are we actually designing it for in the short and the long term?
Because you can't expect everything from one strategy,
Mm-hmm.
right?
No.
Yeah, there has to be a full funnel approach. You can't, as you say, stretch your awareness activity and judge it on performance metrics if it's not built for that.
Yeah.
And I really liked your point that there could be sort of ambient sales that occur just from those specific individuals, but it's really about that longer term sales loyalty. That's coming back time and time again, because they are brand loyalists now after having interacted with some great content.
And it might not happen immediately. It might happen in a couple of weeks or even a couple of months down the line, but what we can't do is use kind of performance measurements to assess brand, and then be sort of disappointed with the results.
Absolutely.
It's to me it's just about kind of what is the window that we're comfortable with here, but also not letting brand off the hook for sales, but it's just got a longer term kind of window. So and then designing it accordingly. I think actually clients respond really well to being sort of challenged in that way, to saying, well, okay, well, let's get a bit more precise about what we're trying to do with this particular piece of activity, and then we might be able to kind of test a different type of activity.
That was my follow-up question would be, we talked a little bit about how measurement is a toolbox and you have lots of different tools for different types of measurement. Are you also able to then translate that to the creator side of things and have different types of creator assets that perform in different parts of the funnel, and how do clients react to that when you've positioned it to them? They
react really well, because we're all kind of working out this kind of puzzle as we're kind of going.
Because it's different for everybody, right?
It's different for everyone. It's different for category and different for brand based on the brand maturity. So we will start out with a good idea, as kind of experts in creative marketing, of how we think it will perform, but we will always make sure that we have room to test and see how things work out in real life, because that's the great thing about social media. It's like a great kind of live giant A/B testing sort of playground. So we can devise. We essentially spend a lot of time hypothesizing how we think it's going to work. But then, of course, it goes out, and we might get pleasantly surprised. So something that is maybe designed for awareness might actually drive lots of short-term sales, and we'll take that as a win. But we'll then say, okay, what's the implication for the next campaign? So it's a mode of kind of always kind of learning, I think.
Yeah, you're never going to go straight in and potentially emulate. If you've never worked with influencers before, you're not going to start your first influencer campaign and emulate the success of your brand channels and have the lowest CPA you've ever seen. It requires a period of testing, and we have our, like you say, we have our best practices and we have our expertise and we have our benchmarks that we can lean on. But ultimately, it's a case of starting, seeing what results you get, and moving on from there.
Perfect. Now, I want to build on that, what you just said, Liv, which is perfect, which is when you do work with a client that's direct to consumer and you have the relationship with them, they're giving you analytics that you want, that obviously can be a really great set of tools to understand different parts of that funnel, the awareness, the consideration of performance assets that you might be running. But when it comes to CPG clients, of which in our relationship that we've known each other in partnership, you do a lot of work in that space. There's obviously a big challenge when you're running influencer campaigns that are driving to retailer scenarios. So I want to dig a bit deeper into the biggest operational measurement frustrations you deal with in those specific scenarios around measurement, data gaps, so on and so forth.
For sure, definitely. I mean, it's those data gaps essentially, and it comes from not having necessarily the right access. A lot of the time, we won't necessarily get the information back from our third-party retailers, or sometimes if the client's quite large, then they're not going to share that data with us externally, or even potentially, with the internal teams that we're working with. So we really lack that visibility to be able to not only see the results that we're driving at the end of the campaign, but also during the campaign. Whilst we're optimizing, while we're running the activation, we've talked about the importance of that testing and the learning, and actually we're not able to see in real time what's happening without that information. So actually we can't, I think we're seeing now more and more clients give us more lower funnel goals, and they want a level of granularity in the results. So they want to know what creators are driving these results, what formats, what creatives, what kind of content. So without that information, we're not able to kind of optimize the campaign towards the best of its ability, which is obviously, you know, quite a large hurdle for us.
Great. Well, that's why we built Portal.
Yes, so, I was going to say, and then came along.
I want to talk a little bit about the projects that we've run together. So let's get into it. So we recently ran a US test where you laid in Portal session level analytics on top of that influencer media. And really, I just want to start with what were you hoping to gain from that project? We feel that this partnership helps you solve some of this challenge, but I really want to hear it from you as to what do you feel that it gave you on a sort of larger scale in terms of partnership with Portal and BDB.
I think in terms of what, before the campaign, I think we definitely, as I mentioned, wanted to get more granular data. We wanted to be able to, you know, we've worked with our clients on a lot of upper funnel campaigns, and once we're a few campaigns in, we feel ready to kind of move down the funnel and see the impact that influencer can make in terms of traffic and sales and other lower funnel metrics. So the reason we kind of wanted to work with Portal is that they sell on third-party retailers, Amazon, Walmart, Target. Unsurprisingly, they're not kind of handing over their tracking to us. So for us, it was really about proving the impact of influencer marketing beyond platform metrics. Yeah. So we've run lots of campaigns in the past. We can see clicks, we can see view-through rates. They are obviously important. They give us a lot of information, but ultimately Portal gives us that extra level of granularity where we can give exact insights back to the client, which can then help us inform future campaigns, and not future campaigns just from kind of an activation media plan point of view, but also from a creator selection point of view. Absolutely.
And so when we completed sort of our first round of data analysis, what really stood out to you when you looked at that initial behavioral data?
I mean, certainly it's all super interesting. I think there's a value in having all of that information and being able to break down different platforms and the results that we're seeing in so many different ways. It's really, really interesting. One of the main things that stood out for me was the session duration, which I think we spoke about, and we actually saw that the average session duration from the thousands of our visitors that we got was over 30 seconds, and they weren't just viewing that core product that we were leading them to, but then they were also browsing other products in the range. So that for me is a lot more valuable information than something like a click or a view-through rate, because we know that those customers are then having a direct product intent.
Absolutely.
So for example, I think we on one of the campaigns we worked with a selection of different types of creators. So we had healthcare professionals was one of our verticals, and that was essentially dentists in their surgeries talking about the importance of oral health. Now, on the platform, we saw that content performed well. It had strong view-through rates, strong click-through rates. But actually, there was other pieces of content from dental students. And actually, they had more of a TikTok feel, confessions of a dental student. And the way that creative was set up, it's a lot more, it's got the authenticity and it's got the trust because she's a dental student, but it's also got that vulnerability and that relatability in the message. And actually that whole package led to, I think, over 80% of our add to carts on that whole campaign. So it would be interesting to kind of look, it's interesting to see, oh, okay, we saw this on the platform, but actually what results did we drive? And then now we're making that case to the client to say, we need to work with more dental students, with more lifestyle creators versus these kind of healthcare professionals who might create content that's a little more stiff.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, to me, super fascinating. When we sat down and went through that creative review line by line as to which influencers are performing best, and the fact that that's now helped shift the conversation internally with the client, it's just a huge it's hugely exciting for us to be able to help drive that value between you and your clients, and obviously it's a testament to the partnership that we've built together. So thank you for that, and we hope to be doing more with your client basis as obviously we partner even closer in the future. Talking of future, let's talk a bit about the future of the space that you are very much involved in, and how media performance is going to intersect with influencer marketing. So let's put our future goggles on. And with creator-led commerce and the rise of retail media booming, how do you see these two ecosystems evolving together? And I might push to you, Simon, on that. So.
Yeah, it's always difficult to predict the future, but the good thing about it is that no one ever checks your answers. So in 5 years' time, we can revisit this. And
I think we should.
So yeah, I think, well, obviously the whole space, I think like retail media and influencer kind of marketing, although it might seem kind of obvious that there's a really clear kind of fit, we have the sort of stats that show things like 8 out of 10 people have bought something after seeing it recommended by a creator. Not the retailers themselves. The retailers themselves have been obviously exploring other media kind of partnerships.
Yep.
With TV, for example, out of home. So they've kind of gone through all of the obvious ones, and now they're starting to go, hang on, there might be something in this. But the people who have not been slow on the, not slow on the uptake, it sounds very rude, doesn't it? The people who have been really quick to seize the opportunities at other platforms.
Yeah.
So if you look at all of the kind of the moves that the likes of Meta are making, kind of the ability to integrate retail media data at a impression level. They are kind of collaborating together. So you've got kind of Meta getting to bed with Amazon to kind of close the loop on their data there, which gives both of them a huge kind of advantage, and they can talk to both retailers but also CPQ brands, and say, look, we can show you almost virtually real-time kind of data, showing that it's working, and then set up lots and lots of test and learn opportunities, and then probably the biggest one that might happen is Amazon could buy TikTok in the US, because that would give them a huge kind of commerce play, and TikTok have been investing in commerce for years now. So I think the platforms themselves are really obviously sort of showing the way forward of the future. When it comes to kind of how creators can accelerate this, I think that we can see a lot more kind of brands, like CPG brands, collaborations with the creators themselves. And that could can translate into things like exclusive products.
So a bit more official, you mean official partnerships with individual. Very interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So kind of working together in collaboration, you could see things like them kind of co-produce kind of products that are then available exclusively at a certain particular kind of retailer, and then obviously they'll have access to the retailer data as well. You can probably expect also to see creators kind of creator commerce popping up in other kind of media. So it could be whether it's connected TV or digital out of home, you kind of using that kind of data as well, as the retailers and the CPG brands themselves see the the effectiveness of it. And then I think another one which is really interesting coming down the track is QR codes, which are obviously having a bit of a moment, bit of a kind of revolution. But in a couple of years' time, barcodes are scheduled to be phased out and replaced essentially with QR codes. So that gives retailers and CPG brands, more importantly, a media window into probably their biggest owned channel, which is their packaging. And then the question is, what on earth do we put on this? That people are actually going to click on. So and again, I can see that another kind of role for creators in that space. Especially with whether it's kind of co-creator brands, but you can imagine unlocking a set of creator recipes, for example, via the QR codes, and kind of making that link back. So I think it's really exciting. I think there's going to be obviously huge kind of convergence of the data. The platforms are getting their hands on all of the best retail data. The retailers are alive to that possibility now. But then you're also going to see some really interesting collaboration that goes beyond just promoting the products, but into co revenue sharing around sales of the products as well. because a lot of the best kind of creators are really alive to this. They're either making their own products, or they're jumping into bed with the CPG brands and collaborating, inventing their own kind of products together, or lines. So I think it's going to accelerate, and at the moment it's just about we're at the early stage of just kind of proving that the returns are, but there's a lot of innovation on the way.
Super interesting. Just building on that, what other industries are you seeing pop up that you thought would never get involved in influencers? Are you getting briefs or clients come to you that, when you started in this space, you thought, I never thought that would be a channel that industry would want to use?
That's a good question. We have had some interesting ones.
I think they've always been around. A lot of kind of services. We did. We got a brief for avocados once.
Really?
Okay.
Wow.
To increase awareness and usage of avocados.
Yeah.
I'm sure of it.
I like that.
But I mean, I'm trying to think of specifics, but I'm sure we have.
But even services is interesting.
Services, energy companies. Yeah. We've worked with a couple of energy companies before. Just ways in which I think you wouldn't necessarily, I think certainly when I joined the influencer marketing world, I think you have a perception of what that is.
The types of category,
exactly, the types of category that you work in. And I think my first few categories were across kind of food, like I say, services, energy. There have been charities in there. It's really way more than just kind of those typical verticals that you're thinking
absolutely.
Of. So,
and that was a surprise to me when we first started talking about the breadth of client portfolio that you had. It's like I never even thought that influencers would be used by financial services or any energy companies and just
cars, entertainment.
Cars.
We are getting some kind of behaviour change briefs from government as well.
Interesting.
So lots going on. Raising awareness. So we got one from a sports kind of governing body that wants to drive participation.
That's
in
fascinating.
Sport. So it's moving. It's actually reflecting the diversity of the communications
and living up to what it says on the tin, an influencer channel, right? And it's not just for CPG brands selling face products. Okay, let's move then to our section on quickfire. So, all right, rapid questions to finish us up. Say the first thing that comes to your mind, and then we'll go Liv and Simon on each one.
Okay.
What would you say is the most overused phrase in influencer briefs right now?
Make me viral content.
Do me viral.
Make content that goes viral.
Okay. Pretty unanimous. Similar for you?
I still see move at the speed of culture quite a lot. Which, sort of makes me laugh. Because it's just almost become like a cliche.
Yeah.
Because culture obviously moves pretty fast, but often the clients aren't always kind of set up to move at the speed of culture, and perhaps they shouldn't. Clients and brands are part of culture, and sometimes you need to be okay with being consistent and being known for what you stand for, rather than jumping on every single trend. So we have a very particular view on trends, and that trends are not every trend. A brand doesn't need to jump on everything going. Not everyone is interested in a yogurt's kind of point of view on the Coldplay affair.
Yes.
So I think it's that trends are brilliant, but you've got to use them judiciously and think about what value you're kind of adding. So for me, I think there is a bit of a macro trend of itself of brands just wanting to jump on everything just to prove how relevant they are. Whereas actually, it's not just about relevance; it's about recognition and kind of knowing who you're standing for and what you're about.
I completely agree. So, similar theme, what's one metric you wish more brands cared about in influencer marketing?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say not that many look at purchase intent, which I always think is quite a good, proof of the pudding. If your campaign has actually kind of moved you to go, to consider buying that. There might be interesting, top of mind awareness, but they might substitute that with impressions. So I think that one is one that we'd like to see being considered a bit more.
Interesting.
For me, it's probably shares and saves, those kind of more private metrics that show, I think, an intent. I mean, it plays into purchase intent, I suppose. It's people sharing or saving a product for later to come back to. I think it shows an interest in the brand or the product itself, unless it's obviously just a funny video. But I think most of the time it's to take some sort of future action or to come back to in the future.
Yeah.
And that's definitely something I think is a lot more important than... And common probably than just liking a piece of content.
And that currently doesn't get a lot of light in the...
I just don't think it's
boardroom?
something that it's never a KPI.
Yeah,
No one ever
okay.
says, oh, we want X amount of shares or saves, which
Yeah.
I appreciate. It's not necessarily the biggest metric to look at, but I do think it's important.
I've once seen that on a brief.
Oh, really?
And they called it something like meaningful engagement, which is,
Subjective.
because it's so easy to do a like. So, but if you've saved something or shared it,
I mean, it's
then
the same
a bit more.
button, but yeah. Same
Yeah.
click.
Yeah, but I think it's like the intention to
Yeah.
save it for later.
It plays back into
Yeah.
the conversation we had around only ever using awareness metrics you had your hands on previously, which was your impressions, your reach, your clicks. Do you think that's being dragged perhaps based on other channels, that they have to have the same framework of measurement for your programmatic versus...
I mean, it definitely impacts us. I mean, we're looking at things like, even on a really kind of granular level, we're looking at view through rates on TikTok and Meta. The kind of short form view through rates, I think on Meta it's 3 seconds, and on TikTok it's 2 seconds. So even that kind of tiny discrepancy, we have to then merge that and kind of come up with a solution to that in our data reporting. So yes, I would say that probably having that discrepancy between the platforms, you just want to look at the same metrics across the board to be able to compare how they're performing against each other.
Yeah, no, super interesting. And then what's the most surprisingly successful creator campaign you've seen or run? Liv, you look like you've got an answer to
I
this.
do, actually. I do. I came from... it's not... I wouldn't say it's surprising, but it was definitely an interesting one for me. So it was one of the first influencer campaigns I worked on, and it was for a card reader, and it was a conversion campaign.
Yeah.
So we were looking at the low funnel goals, and it wasn't a huge budget. So we essentially did like a paid first approach where we worked with really, really small creators. I don't even think you could call them creators. They were small business owners. So we had yoga teachers, we had window cleaners, painter decorators, and their following was not huge by any means, but essentially we gave them a really comprehensive brief, and they created this content to show how this card reader had leveled up their business and made things a lot easier. And we had some incredible results, and I would have, I unfortunately don't know the results off the top of my head, but we drove, sales of this card reader. And to me, it just showed immediately that, one, I suppose it's an example of an industry where you wouldn't necessarily think influencers would be a key part of the campaigns.
Yeah.
But also that it's not just about working with the biggest people and spending the most money. It's sometimes just about the right creative, the right people, and it's an elevated version of recommending a friend, or that review system, and actually that works really, really well for some clients and some brands.
No.
So that for me was a really
Excellent.
really nice
Love that.
one.
Simon, do you have one?
We've got a very current one, which is kind of live right now, which is it's kind of surprising in a way, because it's just because I would say it's less surprising, more it's a really kind of bold use of creators, which is from Argos. So Argos have got a range of very kind of high quality kind of tech products, things like vacuum cleaners and kind of high tech cameras and things that the robot things that can clean your home, and they wanted to kind of but they're not always thought of as the place to go to for high tech pieces. You might go to, I don't know, Currys or something like that. So the surprising bit is really kind of leading into like, how do you change perceptions of that? So we did it in a really kind of tongue-in-cheek way. We devised a kind of a fictional kind of art gallery called Arg House,
Right.
and we actually got a host of brilliant creators to play different kind of roles. So kind of, one is the curator of the exhibition, another one is like a sort of fashion journalist, and basically the products themselves are kind of put on this kind of kind of pedestal, So it's actually simultaneously very entertaining, but it's also a great way to showcase the products.
Yep.
So we've got things like, kind of the latest, Shark Ninja, kind of slushy making machine, things like that on, being talked about in this art gallery. So I think it's surprising in that you wouldn't expect it maybe from Argos.
Yeah.
And we've created it really kind of character-driven, episodic content, which is what people, especially on kind of Instagram, kind of really enjoy and will come back to. And it's doing really well. It's got about 8 million impressions already from just 2 episodes. And we are tracking the right metrics. So we're looking at the awareness of what's called the A-list range, and that is up around 16% already from those who have seen the content. And the kind of, it's got really positive sentiment, 90% plus sentiment, and very high attention scores as well. So it's doing brilliantly on every kind of metric. But we're very carefully actually kind of looking at not just things like engagement rates, which obviously we look at as a hygiene piece, but we're actually much more interested in how people respond to it as a piece of entertainment.
Yep.
And crucially, do they remember that it's from Argos and not someone else? Because the tricky part of it is obviously we're featuring quite a number of different tech brands, and we obviously we want to showcase their products really well, but people must take away that it's Argos that you go to for the latest trending tech.
Which is not such an easy thing to do,
Yes, yeah.
Subtly, as well as ensuring that the advertiser is the one that the clients the consumers are remembering at the end.
For sure.
Yeah, and there's a lot of I think there's a lot of fallacy around creator marketing, even by kind of people in the industry, that the idea of having kind of brands or heavily kind of branded content is somehow going to be detrimental to the performance of the content. And actually what we found is when it's done really kind of naturally and early, but naturally, so not like flashing up the logo, but actually integrating the kind of the logo on the product shot or like in context, so lots of like very kind of clear and confident but natural cues around the branding, that performs really well. So you make sure that this is why I always struggle a little bit with looking at just engagement rate, because engagement rate tells you a piece of content has performed well in of itself as content. Someone's really liked it, but if they don't take away what the brand was and the associations that you're trying to drive for the brand, then effectively it's a bit of a waste of time and money. So that's what we're trying to do with something like Argos is, we're trying to change brand perceptions. Really important that we do that in a way that feels natural and entertaining, so it works as a piece of content, but also drives the right associations for the brand.
Absolutely. Well, you are both clearly experts in your respective areas, and I know that from working firsthand with you. So I'm going to have a final question here, which is, if you could give one tip to a brand just starting in the influencer marketing space, what would it be and why?
For me, it would be kind of, I suppose, off the back of that campaign that I spoke about recently, was to try and find creators that fit your brand. You don't need to try and be necessarily super culturally you don't need to try and be super culturally relevant. I think you need to do something that makes sense to your brand and makes sense to the message that you're trying to push out. You're using influencers for a reason. What is that reason? What should that content look like? Like, almost just keep it simple, because I think we receive a lot of briefs that want to achieve everything full funnel, first time in influencer marketing with a small budget and drive 20,000 sales on the first go. So for me, it's keep it simple in terms of the creators, be precise about what you want to achieve, start there, start testing, off you go.
Don't try to do too much.
Yeah
I can't think
which
of a
I kind of
better
tried to
answer
do
than
in that.
I think that's definitely it. Like, just it's about prioritization again. Just try to let's just try to do one thing really well, and then we can kind of go forward and test other things after that. So
Perfect.
I concur.
Well, Simon, Olivia, thank you so much for taking the time to come here, share your insights and expertise. It's been an absolute pleasure, and the partnership that we struck together has obviously proved that you can combine great creative, smart media planning with shopper level insights. And I'm really excited to see where we take that with bringing measurable influencer campaigns to your client portfolio. So once again, thank you for joining. Thank you for everyone for listening to us. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, then like and share it. And we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.